Hello, 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 and welcome to this month's amazing lineup on the Her Version Impact, expanding rapidly with over 300 YouTube videos, 60 female guest speakers, and over 40 impact panel guests. We are now on 6 different podcast platforms, including Spotify, iTunes, and SoundCloud. I am thrilled to have a female panel filled this month as we talk about emotional and mental health. The conversation around this topic will be broad and will guarantee to educate you on so many areas of your life. Join us as we dive deep into our personal journeys to improving our mental and emotional health and the challenges along the way. Her Version is a contemporary global stage, a platform created for bold storytelling, providing stories, tools, and advice on how to break free from life struggles and design your own vibrant life. For those of you that don't know me, I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and share. Let's jump right in. Okay. Christine, thank you so much for all of that. And I'm handing the mic over to Jen.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
So I'm Jen. I'm the owner of Conchi Coaching. I'm a certified mindset and empowerment coach. I know I shared my story a little bit earlier, but I kind of want to bring it back to light because it's kind of tied. It's going to circle us back a little bit to a conversation that we were having earlier. And I had always followed somebody else's definition of success. And in the process, I lost who I was. And in that darker kind of mental and emotional state, I didn't feel myself, but I didn't really recognize that I didn't feel myself. Like it was that weird just feeling of being lost and not good enough and feeling like I should be something else. And I think, we've talked a lot about childhood and how that leads. But the question I would like to, it's kind of a 2-part question, but as we get older, like I feel like a lot of this reflection of looking back at childhood and realizing how it impacts us has come now that a lot of us have walked this journey and done this deep inner work. But how do you help your clients embrace the emotions that they're feeling? Because to bring up Brené Brown again, she did in one of her research studies, the mean number of emotions that most people know and understand are 3: happy, sad, and pissed. But there's such a spectrum of emotions. So how do you help your clients understand and really embrace what they're feeling? So that's my question. Lisa.
Still waiting to see if anybody else wanted to talk since I've been talking a lot. But one of the first things I always do with my Joy Schoolers is they have to set, some of them set their watches to go off, but they have to find intervals throughout their day to get quiet and actually go in and ask that question. And we use a lot of terms of endearment with ourselves because self-love is so important to that. So they'll have to like get quiet and say, sweetheart, what are you feeling? Mm-hmm. And because we don't think to ask ourselves that. And then once we get a clear answer, it's sweetheart, what do you need? Because sometimes it's as simple as I need to open a window and get some fresh air. I need a cup of tea. I need to check out for 5 minutes and just, be quiet, as some of us were talking about. So It's just a practice. We don't ask ourselves. We don't do it.
We don't. And that's an amazing point because it is. I like that idea of like the watch thing and just being like check in with ourselves because it's like setting an alarm. Lucy, the 3 main emotions are happy, sad, and pissed. And a suggestion, just while I kind of wait for other people to raise their hand, is to help you understand what you're feeling, because the mean number is 3, is you can use an emotion wheel. Or like I have, if you like emotions, this is another book that I highly recommend. This one I have available so I can just like show it to you. Whoop, show. Cameras are weird. It's Permission to Feel by Mark Brackett. But in the beginning of the book, he has a mood chart. So you can actually like open it up and be like, what am I feeling? and it gives you that ability to research it. Nicole, and then Christine.
I love that you just showed that feelings chart, both with my clients and again with my toddler. We have a feelings chart. And so when he was maybe like 2 years old, we started. And so it was, just maybe 6 or I think we had 8 actually, 8 different feelings. And so I think it's so important for children and adults, for the littles that we're raising and for ourselves and the people around us to come into more of these feelings. Like, I'm frustrated. What does that feel like in my body when I'm frustrated? Oh, there's this something in my solar plexus happening. Is that anxiety? Is it whatever? I mean, you hear people talking about anxiety all the time these days, or depression all the time these days, but there's so many subtleties within that. What are you truly feeling in your body? What is is it a tension? Is it an excitement? Is it a vibration? Is it a spasm? What's happening in your body, and how can we breathe into that with an awareness? I like to talk to my son about using our breath, and then we either invite this feeling for a cup of tea. So we sit down with it, and we don't necessarily have to have a real cup of tea, but we invite it in and we sit with it, and we ask, similar to what Lisa was saying, what do you need? Sometimes these feelings just want to be seen or heard, because maybe as a child we weren't seen and heard. And so now they're all stuffed inside and we don't know how to deal with them. We didn't know how to name them. We didn't know how to receive them. We didn't know how to have awareness with them. We didn't know how to fix the thing. It doesn't necessarily need to be fixed, but how to sit with it and ask it, what do you need? What do I need right now in order to help myself move through this? So and the feelings book, Lucy, is, I think it was from, we got the idea from a leapfrog book about emotions. And so we just made a simple chart with the little frog that had different type of faces so that my son could say, I'm feeling this one. I feel like that, and I started using the chart 2 years ago with him, and it's helped so much, because sometimes as adults, we forget to check in. Oh, actually, I'm feeling like that, and I need a hug or some deep breaths or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
That is
and
so
I love that
powerful.
thank you for calling out that book. I was going to say, you can also just do a quick Google. You can Google emotion wheel, feelings chart, mood meter. There's ones for kids. There's ones for adults. So just Google and find one that feels good to you, and one that resonates with you, and just use it. But Christine, go ahead.
And also going back to Brene Brown, I believe that her newest book, Atlas of the Heart, is going through, I think she names 82 different emotions. And I haven't read the book yet, but I heard her talk about it on a podcast. And she talks about the importance of the specificity of language in terms of how, she was talking about the word overwhelm and how we often use it and it's not really what we're feeling. But just by using that word, we almost bring ourselves into overwhelm. So I, again, haven't read it, but it's Brene Brown, so it's amazing. The woman just, whatever. So can you tell I'm a little bit of a groupie?
I love her too.
But the other thing is, for me, with helping my clients with feelings, again, I use tapping so much because it allows people to tap into their feelings. I think something that's really important is that we need to, and it's funny because I just posted something on social media about this today. The quote was, the most difficult conversations we need to have are with ourselves. Because if you can't admit to yourself that you have a feeling, you can't talk to your therapist or your coach or anyone else about it. And we need to allow ourselves to feel those feelings, even the ones that don't feel good. And we all shy away from them because nobody wants to feel sad. Nobody wants to feel grief. But if we don't feel them, they're not going away, and they just grow under the surface and they create new problems. So the thing for me with tapping, and there are lots of other mindfulness modalities that accomplish this as well. The tapping is just my go-to, but it allows you to acknowledge the emotions and process them really quickly so that you can then release it. So it's about feeling them, because you have to feel them, but it helps you expedite that process so you don't have to sit in it forever. But really, whatever the modality is that you choose, finding a way that you can feel those emotions safely, and sometimes safely means with someone helping you, a therapist or a coach or someone, but feeling them so that you can then process them and let them go.
Yeah. I really like that. And then Tina, I'll jump over to you, but it really is about giving ourselves permission to feel all of the emotions. Toxic positivity is real and it's dangerous. If we try to force ourselves to be happy all the time, we actually diminish all of the other emotions that we're feeling. And when we truly are happy, that is diminished as well. So that radical acceptance that we were talking about earlier is give ourselves permission to feel all of the emotions and sit with them for as long as we need to. That hug that Lisa was talking about earlier. So thank you for bringing that up for sure. Tina.
Yes, definitely. The feelings is something that I've learned to be in that space. And it took time because I really would mask my feelings because I would always think I need to be strong. I need to everything has got to be great. Well, I lost my daughter to cancer last year. And let me tell you, anger was definitely a feeling that I needed to come out. And I showed my anger, okay? Not physically to anybody else, okay? But it came out. And it's okay to feel your feelings, to be in that space. It's okay to be sad. And then it's okay to go back to joy. But you got to be in that feeling. And that's something that I've had to learn the hard way, is you got to get into that feeling because it's not healthy.
Yeah. And it's feel the feelings and also ask for what you need when you're feeling those feelings.
Exactly. Yes.
Thank you so much for all of that. I appreciate all the input on that. I do have a question from an individual that I'm going to put up on screen. It is, excuse me, it is pointed at Kimberly. However, I do want Kimberly to answer, obviously, but I do know that there are a few women on this panel who are who have had narcissistic abuse in their past. So I would like to take a few minutes to, if you're interested or this resonates with you, for you to also give your input after Kimberly. It's important to remember that the Her Version platform originated on narcissistic abuse. The reason why this podcast exists is because of the abuse that I encountered in my past. So I think it's important to make sure that, you know, we continue to support the foundation of what this podcast originally originated from and the individuals who have been supporting us and following us because of that foundation. So I'd like Kimberly to read the question, answer, and then if anybody else would like to add, I'd be happy to listen to that also.
Okay, so Lucy says that she heard me talking with Sabrina about my narcissistic story. So she wants to ask how I healed from that, and because she's having trouble mentally healing. You know, this is, it was so hard for me because, you know, I was conditioned as a child. And so what I've learned is that when you suffer a lot of emotional abuse, we tend to take on a completely different personality, which is not who we are. And we need to dissect that and pull that apart, because while we, you know, for me, I was my mother, and she has not been a part of my life for 17 years, but for 15 of those years, she was still forefront in my mentality because I was still believing what she had said to me. And so I was self-abusing. So for 15 years, I continued the abuse by self-abusing, by continuing to hear what she was saying to me. And so it's about unlearning these behaviors that I had done for like 48 years. So that was really hard. But I found that I knew all the things that she had said about me were not true. And it's took me a long time to accept that, you know, I know who I am. I know I'm a good person. And, you know, she told me that I'd be a terrible mother. Well, you know what? I'm a fantastic mother. And, you know, and I'm proud of that. And I knew, you know, as a young kid, when she was telling me that I was going to be a terrible, terrible mother, I was like, no, I'm not. I'm going to be a great mum. But I carried that on for so long. And it's really about unpacking, and it's, I'm a story listener. I don't, you know, I believe in allowing other people to tell their story from start to finish. And once you can start telling your story and you can get less emotional each time you tell it. You can start to understand, because you're hearing yourself tell your story, and you know, it is a long process. And you know, find someone who resonates with you and has walked in your shoes that you're in, and build that rapport with someone, so that you know, for me, therapy didn't work. Psychologists didn't work. You know, they have their place and I fully respect them. But for me, it wasn't until I found someone that had a mother like I did and really understood where I was coming from. And, you know, and then I could get all the crazies that I wasn't crazy, and break it down. But I mean, whether you're with a narcissistic partner or you have a narcissistic parent, where you end up is the same. The stories are different, but where you end up is the same. And how you heal in the healing process is very different for everybody. You know, I'm not a meditator. I can't meditate. You know, I'm not someone who dances, as I said before. I'm not someone who can do that to release my energy. I need to be peace and quiet and walk away. I walk away from arguments. I don't engage, whereas I used to you know, to fight for my cause. And I don't do that anymore, because you know, it's a long process to learn. But you can do it. Just find someone that has, you know, that resonates with you and that you have a rapport with, and just tell your story. And as you know, as many times as you can. I mean, I used to bawl my eyes out every time, and I couldn't tell my story. And then I could tell a little bit, and then a little bit more, until now I can tell my story without crying or you know, I don't want to say unemotional, but I don't carry that emotional baggage anymore, which is, you know, what my podcast is I have a platform where people could just share their story. Marie?
Regardless, don't give up. Keep going. Try to find
Absolutely.
modalities. Try to find other tools. For me as well, like, I didn't like therapy. I didn't like the medication. And it wasn't until I got into metaphysical and energy work that it changed for me. Things shifted. Things started to come into place. And that is how I healed from my narcissistic relationship as well. So don't give up. Just keep going. Try to find something that resonates with you, because you will find it.
Absolutely.
Keep going, Nicole.
Thanks. Well, I actually kind of have a two-part thing here. So I definitely went through narcissistic abuse. Actually, the most recent and most impactful one was right after I became a mother. And so I was living with someone who was supposedly there to help me care for my child as a living caregiver and support system, because I'm a single mama. And this person ended up being incredibly emotionally abusive towards me. Similar to what Kim was saying, would always be like, you're doing it wrong. You're going to be such a terrible mother. This child is going to grow up and be the worst person ever. You're doing, you know, everything I did was wrong. And yet I really knew that I needed to follow my motherly instincts, that everything that I was doing was right for my child. And that this person obviously had mental health issues that they were trying to project on me. But it still wore on me very heavily. And also I was in a space of moving through postpartum and ended up having postpartum depression. So I think it comes back to, again, in a lot of ways, what is your truth? Get clear on who you are. Who are you? And know who you are so that you can set clear boundaries. And I don't know, Sabrina, if you want to call on someone else, but that kind of leads into what the question that I was going to ask for the panel as well. So
does anyone else have anything to add? Susan?
Yeah, thank you. Just give yourself time to heal. I'm listening to all of you, and it's okay, especially when a lot of us are also going through grief, because there's a loss. You have to heal from loss. You need to heal from finding yourself and who you are, and that takes time. And it is great to work with somebody, because it's not easy to do this by yourself. and to have somebody there that can lift you up and let you find out, as we were just talking about, who are you? Who you find yourself, because after being so, when you're abused, you don't know who you really are anymore because you've had these beliefs drummed into you. So just to give yourself that time to heal, and that everybody takes different times.
100%. I do want to add before we jump to Nicole hosting that one of the issues that I dealt with, and I'm not that I'm trying to project my story onto you, Lucy, but I didn't healing until I started jumping into my personal growth. So there was a whole time span, and anyone who's been in this sort of abuse can a lot of times relate to this, where all you're doing is learning about narcissism, learning about abuse, and you wind up down this rabbit hole trying to convince yourself that you're not crazy, because a lot of times with this abuse, there's no physical abuse. So there's no way to prove like physical evidence that this actually happened. It's all in your head. So I spent a ridiculous amount of time wasted on just going down this rabbit hole of proving to myself, like, yes, he did this. Yes, he did this. Therefore, I am right. And then again, over and over and over again, every video, every forum, every article I could find to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy, to prove to my world that I wasn't crazy. And it wasn't until I stopped concentrating on the abuse and the narcissism, and I started to concentrate on my own self and my own personal growth and who I am and what I want to do and what my actual identity is, because they take that from you, that I actually started to heal. So maybe,
Absolutely.
kind of take that on also.